Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Redirection with Terri-Karelle, the podcast. I'm so proud of this passion project, and I'm going to tell you why if it's the very first time you are stumbling across it. It's because I have the privilege and the honor to speak with different kinds of people, different backgrounds, different walks of life, different ages that share their stories just so openly and honestly with the hopes that in sharing their stories of redirection and having to navigate and figure out life, that somehow they can help you along your journey and your life. This podcast is brought to you by MasterCard in association with Heineken 00. And I really want to thank all of my partners and my sponsors who believed in this dream and has decided to support. A huge shout out to Toyota Jamaica for facilitating sign language. And we have Tony Aiken, who is our facilitator, our sign language interpreter. This has been an amazing journey for me, simply because I learn more about myself as I get to speak with these guests. And so I am Terri-Karelle. You can find me at Terri-Karelle across all social media platforms. If you'd like to find out more about me, go ahead and visit my website, terrikarelle.com. If there's anybody you know who has an amazing redirection story that you think other people should hear, or a story that you think will resonate, again, you can go visit my website and send me an email. No, we want these conversations to continue way after our guest has left. And in order to do that, go ahead and use the hashtag TKRedirection. So the question is, who next is coming to the redirection seat? I promise you, a chance encounter with this young lady is the reason why she is going to be in the seat. Born with a particular condition and having to navigate how mean society can be, how mean communities can be, and having to realize that the validation she needed was the validation that she would have to find from within. She finds that power. She redirects how she looks at herself and her value and her worth. And now she is an author, communication specialist, and she's so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so happy to welcome the beautiful, the amazing Kristen McKenzie in the redirection seat. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Terry.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, can we just talk about the colors? The black and white? I mean, they say that great minds think alike or fools seldom differ. I'm going to go with the great minds.
Great minds think alike.
Think alike. How are you?
I'm good. A little bit under the weather, but I'm good.
Thank you for being here and thank you for pushing through.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to have this discussion with you. I met you in 2021, just briefly,
Yes.
passing through my daughter's school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the opportunity of meeting you at the Toyota Coffee House,
Yes.
where you gifted me your book. And I think that was my very first opportunity to learn about you. So first of all, I want you to tell my viewers and my listeners about your book and why you thought that was important. And please tell us the name of your book.
Sure. Well, the name of my book is God's Exotic Masterpiece, Born to Stand Out. Mm-hmm. And it's about my journey of self-discovery, living with Cruzon syndrome. Mm-hmm. And what Cruzon is, it's a genetic condition. They call it disorder, but I call it a condition, that where the bones in my skull were fused too early in life, too early, and it caused me to have abnormal features. Mm-hmm. So my mid-face was flatter than it is. I had more protruding eyes. I had my upper jaw was more pushed back, and my lower jaw was more forward. So everything was sort of out of alignment for me. And coupled with that, I think society is not as understanding towards people with differences.
Yes.
And facial differences like that. So I went through a lot of teasing and ridicule over the smallest things. Mm-hmm. For me, even the biggest thing for me, I was pushed in a bathroom at 8 years old just because I wanted to use it. A typical bodily function that people go through.
Yes.
I could not just normally walk into a bathroom like everybody else. They said that I was too ugly to use the bathroom.
You're kidding.
And they had to push me in, and I ended up urinating right there on the floor because they pushed me in, I fell down, and I had to just urinate right there.
Wow. First of all, I'm extremely sorry to hear that, and it is sad, and I'm not even shocked because we have members of the deaf community who have issues. We have members who have to use wheelchairs who are also bullied. So how you said that persons with differences are the ones who society often ostracizes. I want us to take it back to Kristen, little Kristen, and I want, if you can remember the very first time you realized that you were different. Was it something that you realized for yourself, or was it that you heard or you got accustomed to people telling you you were different?
Well, when I realized, I looked at my siblings and I said, how come their eyes are not as big? How come their jaws they could smile normally, unlike myself? You could see their teeth when they smiled. And that's what started it for me. But then when people started to treat me differently, that was when I knew, okay, I'm not normal, or I'm not like everybody else. So that's what, and then, but coupled with that, with Cruzon, is not just the facial. I could not breathe at night. I had sleep apnea from, I was about a couple months, nearly 1 year old.
Yes.
And my nasal passage was very narrow. I could not breathe. So I had fits as a child, fevers, everything.
So we're talking about health conditions came along with
the emotional
Cruzon
aspects that I had to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Talk to me about parenting in terms of your parents, because it must be challenging and it must be difficult even for some parents to understand that they may have a child that is different. And this is a child who's going to grow up within church communities, school communities, society in general. This child will have to somehow become an adult. We have to move into professional spaces. We're not even going to talk about even relationships and love. How did your parents deal with the fact that you had this condition?
Well, they dealt with the medical aspect of it. The emotional side of it, they tried to, but because I kept everything in, everything, every bully, every ridicule, everywhere I was taunted, I kept it within me because I said, they have too much on their plate. So I said, let me keep that part to myself and try to deal with it so that they don't have to deal with, because they had a lot to deal with in addition to their own lives. They had to work. They had my siblings to take care of. They had their own their own personal life to deal with. So they did.
And you made this decision at what age? What age were you saying, let me...
When I was pushed into the bathroom, I said I didn't want to tell them. Because I didn't want that heavy weight on them anymore. I wanted to shield them from it as best as I could.
Do you think they still knew it existed even though you didn't tell them?
They knew because my mother would ask. But when I would tell her no, she didn't want to pry. She kind of just wanted to... She just thought that I was honest enough. And
so she left it there.
Left it there. But we have, even to this day, we have an incredible relationship where she's open enough to hear, to listen to me. We have an open space where we talk about everything that we're going through. But I said, you know what? I want to keep this to myself because they're dealing with too much.
Yeah.
Because even with sleep apnea, they had to... Because with sleep apnea, they didn't want me to sleep away. So they would take turns every night waking me up and say, Kristen, are you okay? And so they didn't get sleep. I didn't get 8 hours of sleep that typical children would get.
How about the relationship with your siblings? Were they understanding? Because, I mean, they also are a part of the ecosystem, right? Of family. Did they understand, and did they often either witness, or did you even confide in maybe one of your siblings with regards to your
Actually, I didn't confide in them, but they were very protective, especially my brother. He would not want anyone to stare at me for too long. He would be like a bodyguard, so to speak, and say, hey, why are you looking at her like that? And he would want to jump down their throats and say, you know what, she is the way she is.
Get over it.
She's an incredible sister. She's a perfect sister at the end of the day.
How
And
did
he's my
that-
older brother.
How did that make you feel?
It I felt a little bit timid because I'm like, okay, I can't stand up for myself, but you know, I'm like, why I had to have this life and he didn't. He could walk around normally, but I had to be protected.
Yeah. So give us an idea for my viewers and my listeners. Give us an idea of how people ridiculed you, what you had to deal with at school that you did not share with your parents. Give us some examples.
Well, one example, well, one of the many, is I remember for my graduation photo, I got all dolled up,
Yes.
ready to take it. I did my hair in a particular, like a different style, because I was normal little person with just one. I just put my hair in one. But I said for this one, I wanted curls. So I remember going to school the day of the photo that they took at school. And I remember just drinking, I was at the water cooler, and someone literally pulled my hair, pulled out the curls, and said, "These curls don't make you any better than how you are. You're still ugly, no matter what."
How did you honestly, Kristen, I mean, you're very calm, you're telling the story calmly, and I'm trying to think of how you felt having to get up every day to go to an environment where you didn't know, and this is not just verbal, it's also physical.
Physical, yes.
This is not just, you're ugly, which also leaves emotional scars, but it's the fact that you could end up in a physical altercation, not because you want to, but because people felt it was their right to treat you in a manner that was not right.
Yes.
How did you manage to go through school? You were passing, you were getting good grades, you were, how?
I mean, it wasn't easy, because even in that instance, I was like, and I love my hair how it was, and here it is, my self-esteem was shot, and even because I went through surgery, and it was a 12-hour surgery, and I had to take time off from school, and when I returned to school, it's a title in my book what I call "Big Difference is a Change."
Yes.
And I remember returning to school in November, and I thought that things would have been better because I felt better about myself, at least a little bit. And I remember the first word that they called me was a duppy. I said, "Kristen, you look like a duppy." And I'm like, my parents spent $1.8 million for me to look like a duppy. Wow. But I mean, the biggest thing was I was happy that my health had improved.
Yeah.
I knew what it was now to sleep through a night.
Yeah.
To sleep 8 hours a day. To sleep 8 hours at night.
So here it is, you feel better. You're sleeping better. You feel healthier. And it didn't really matter to those around you.
And I mean, because it was a big difference in me, but a little difference in
For
society.
them. What about a best friend, a bestie, a ride or die, a chargey? Did you ever make or meet someone who you could consider a bestie who was there with you through school?
Well, actually, my best friend, she has been my friend since we were both in diapers.
Yes.
But even her, I couldn't go to. I didn't want it coming back to my parents, ultimately. I didn't want them to, because essentially she will say, "Oh, this is too serious for me. This may be too big for me. Let me tell your parents." I feared her going back to them and saying that. So even from her, I kept it bottled up.
Do you regret not telling your parents the extent to which the bullying took place? Do you ever have that moment where you say, hey, maybe things might have gotten better if I had advocated and told, for myself, told my parents, told the teachers, told the principal, told authorities around me?
I see that now. I knew that what I did was wrong in that sense, but I see it now, the merit in getting help.
Yes.
I see the merit in voicing how you feel, because that's the only way change will come. Because if people don't know that they're doing something wrong, they won't fix it.
Absolutely. And
So
when
it's for me to speak up about it and say, look, I was hurt. I was pushed in a bathroom. I was pulled by my hair in order to effect change.
And what about And what about leaving high school? You know, this is the time when we're all looking at, you know, college, university. At any time at all, did you ever question whether you'd be able to actually have a job, get a job? Because when you look around, you're seeing how people treat you based on how you look. And we also understand that the whole process of going into university, that's another space, and then going into the working world, having to interface, do the interview, work with people, customers, front facing. Were you ever, you know, what's going through your mind as you're growing?
Well, I was happy to be out of the childhood space because I believe that adults would have been a lot more lenient, sympathetic or empathetic, and but I would always try to cover certain features. So I remember going into an interview, I always had to wear dark glasses because I feared so much that they would stare, even as adults.
Yes.
But it's when I started to get comfortable, I said, okay, I can take it off now. I'll try to speak highly of myself in order for you to not look at me. But eventually when I learned how to love myself for who I am, for every scar that I have, because I still have 2 scars from the surgeries.
Of course.
And I still remember it every day, but I said, you know what? I am who I am. I wasn't born to fit in. I was born to stand out.
How did you get to this point? How did you get to the point where your eyes are telling you that people are staring? You already can anticipate when people stop talking the moment you walk into a room. You can already know the kinds of questions they may have. How and when did you get to the point where you said, you know, I'm born to stand out and I'm God's exotic masterpiece, which is the name of your book? How long did it take you to arrive at that?
Well, it took me 27 years. It took me going to counseling. And in that counseling, I found God.
Amen.
It's not that I didn't know God before. I always felt like God made a mistake when he made me. And I used to think, why did you? So it's not that I didn't know. It's not that I think I had a little resentment towards God. Because I always heard that God knows everything before it happens.
Yeah, so why?
So
if you
why,
knew this?
if you knew this, why made me this way? But it was when, during one of the counseling sessions, she told me about Psalm 139. And when I read that verse, that you're fearfully and wonderfully made, I said, you really didn't make a mistake. I am who I am for a purpose. And I remember bawling my eyes out when I read it. And then I just started to get to know God first. I started listening to more gospel. I started reading his word more daily. I started going to church more.
Yes.
And I just started building that foundation and building that relationship with God. And then when I started doing that, I started to discover who I was. I started to spend time with myself.
Yes.
Because in spending time with God, I spent time with myself. I started to find different things that I loved. Like one of my favorite things is to light candles as I pray. And I started just doing that every day. And I started to become who I am. When I realized that I was improving and becoming a better version of myself was when I would go on a date by myself and I would enjoy it from start to finish.
Really?
Because I always would feel like, oh, I have to have people around so that they could be my bodyguards. I would always call my friend and say, hey, follow me here, because I wanted that shield.
Yes.
It was one day I said, you know what, let me go on a date by myself. Let me go eat some sushi by myself.
Yes.
Because sushi is one of my favorite things.
My daughter as well. She would absolutely love you.
Exactly. And I remember just sitting in the restaurant and I feel like I'm not worried about people staring. I'm just enjoying myself. And that was when I knew I no longer hide. I no longer exist in the shadows.
Yes.
I am who I am.
Beautiful. When you look at yourself now, you know, what are the words that you use to describe yourself?
I would say beautiful. I would say unique and different.
Yes.
And I use the word anything can happen. Anything, I can do anything and everything. There is nothing there's no limits to what I can do anymore. And I don't look at myself as, oh, I'm just that different girl.
Right. I'm the other.
I'm the other
another.
person. I don't look at myself as the other anymore. I'm just like everybody else.
Yes.
I'm just as capable, just as loving as everybody else.
Do
And
you
I deserve the same respect as everybody else.
As you certainly do you find that society has gotten any better? We see, so many campaigns where we're exposed definitely to so many more messages about loving people, being respectful, being thoughtful, being mindful, being empathetic, being kind, being compassionate. At this point, do you believe that our society has gotten better?
I think it has gotten better, but I think that there are ways to go. That I think that people need to still learn more about every other conditions, so that people are more understanding. And it starts with the home. It starts with children, and teaching them that look, there are people who have impairments, they have disabilities, and only that there are other facial features as well. Cruzon being one of them.
Yes.
And teach them about others. There is sickle cell, there's everything that comes with it.
Correct.
And it's just about teaching children to be empathetic, that there's going to be someone who doesn't look like you, but they deserve to be treated fairly.
Absolutely.
Just like you.
Absolutely. And talk to me, because you are a communication specialist. So talk to me about your transition into the professional space, and what that has been like for you.
Well, because even with this, I'm usually a behind the scenes kind of person, but I now have to traverse into different spaces.
Yes.
And I try to be as bold as I possibly can. It's not, I sometimes have to talk myself into it, but I put myself out there, and I'm not afraid to do that anymore.
Do you believe that when you try to be bold and you see yourself in a very positive light, and you speak words of positivity over yourself, and you get up every day and you affirm yourself, do you believe that as you continue to do that for yourself, people also do it?
Yes. Because they always say, you treat people how they want, you treat yourself how you want others to treat you. And I said, if I carry myself a certain way, that's what it's going to attract. That's how I'm going to attract from people. So I try to tell myself that, look, it's going to be a good day. It starts with that.
Yes.
I'm going to have a good day despite what may happen. I'm still beautiful despite what may happen.
Absolutely.
And that's what I attract each day. I try to attract that each day.
Beautiful. Talk to me about possible motherhood. It's one of those topics that people always want to assume that you want to be a mother because you have a uterus, right? First of all, that's a terrible assumption. But naturally, the question is, have you ever thought about motherhood, what that might look like if you were to ever decide to have a child? Are there concerns? Are there fears? Is there worry? Talk to me about that.
I mean, there were concerns because it's a 50-50 chance that I may give my child may be born with Cruzon. It's a 100% chance if I have a partner with Cruzon, but a 50-50 chance if he doesn't have it. And it's a concern sometimes because I wonder, okay, if I went through this, how different will my child be?
Yeah.
And then not only the emotional side of it, but there's also the medical.
Yes.
I have to be financially equipped to deal with the medical expenses, to deal with the surgeries that may come. And
talk to me about that. I mean, as in, I didn't mean to cut you, but you bring up a very good point, because you had said that you have the mild. You're on the milder side of Cruzon, but then we know that we have individuals who are born with a very extreme manifestations. Just how expensive can it be from a health perspective?
Well, for those with the ones who are born with more severe, they have to do multiple surgeries. I did one, and I was to do a second one when I stopped growing. And that alone at the time, which was 2002, it was almost $2 million. So imagine today, how advanced medical is and how much the cost is. So that you're looking at multiple operations, multiple doctors' visits, multiple
Does
surgeries.
insurance cover those things? I mean, I
Well,
don't
it
know.
covered at the time.
Okay.
I hope they cover it now.
Right. So you're saying that if you were to consider motherhood, you're also thinking about the
The
financial.
financial aspect of it, yes. Wow. And I mean, because it's not just the surgery. The surgery is one thing, but there's also, I had to get orthodontic treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And I had braces in for 8 years.
So how many years?
For 8. 8 years, yes.
Wow.
In order to correct everything and so it's a monthly payment for 8 years.
Right. Wow. And that is a process.
Yes.
So it is always going to be a risk.
Yes.
Is what you're saying. And unfortunately, so for example, we were talking off the air, and I was saying to her that I can know, for example, if my partner has the sickle cell trait, but you may not necessarily, or you will never know if your partner carries the trait or not until after the baby is born.
Yes.
Is there a community? For example, there are always these communities. So for lupus, there's a community of persons who are lupus warriors. For breast cancer, you have your communities. For persons with Cruzon, have you found a community where persons with Cruzon can actually relate to each other, help each other, help navigate?
I haven't found locally, but there is a Facebook group that I'm a part of. But they're more international patients where they share their stories. I've been able to share mine. And, they ask for like tips here and there. So, but I haven't found anyone locally yet.
Was there ever a moment in your life where you just thought, it doesn't make any sense? Like, I'm absolutely unhappy. Was there ever a moment in your life where you thought that it was definitely going to break you, what people said, what people did? And if you had a moment, what was it?
Well, there was a moment it actually broke me in pieces. And I actually wanted to commit suicide because I assumed right then and there that I would never change and society would never change. So I went as far as to pick up a knife in order to slit my wrist and to just bleed out on the floor. But thankfully, my aunt intervened at that point.
Really?
And my father and my parents came. And I said, that was when they kind of stopped me in my tracks, so to speak. But it's from then I tried to give life a second chance in hopes that things would be better down the road. But it did, and then why it broke me as well is because I didn't say anything.
Yeah, and
everything inside.
Was this the accumulation of everything that had been happening, or was there this one catalyst or this one particular trigger that made you feel this way on this day?
Well, it was the accumulation because I wanted to commit suicide at 19. So it was everything leading up to that day.
That's a lot, baby girl.
And then because I didn't say anything, I didn't tell anyone at all. Because I had siblings, I had the parents who were very supportive. I had friends who are like family that I could have said something, but I opted not to. And that, I would say, it did more harm than good.
What have you learned the most? What is the biggest lesson you've learned on this journey so far? You're still super young. You still have so many years.
30 is not that young.
Yeah. Then, Kristen, if you can come from a show and tell me say 30s is not that young, then what you just about me? What is the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
My biggest lesson, I would say, that life changes every now and again. And I have to be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
No matter what that looks like to others. So if I'm goofy, if I'm funny, whatever that looks like to others, it's fine. As long as it's important to me and to God, that's the most important thing.
That's beautiful. What moment when you close your eyes and you put your head back brings you the most joy and happiness? Has there been a moment or a memory that you can always say, that's a priceless moment for me? And why?
Honestly, the day I wrote my book, the day I published.
Yes.
Because it felt like this is why everything happened. And this is like a part of my ultimate purpose in life. And it felt like a release, to finally release everything that I'd gone through, and in hopes of it being motivating for someone else and encouraging for someone else.
And what has the review? What have the reviews been like?
Well,
Because I've read the book and it's lovely. I thought you were extremely honest and open and transparent, and I can see why telling your story could help, and not just help other people who have crews on, but people who have differences, people who feel isolated, who feel as if they don't belong. I think your book has fantastic nuggets based on your story. So what have the reviews been like for you?
Well, they have been good. They have been positive. One of the main things I've heard, they call it a page turner. They always keep reading. But the biggest thing that came from my book was that it opened the window for people to apologize. It has opened the door for people to say, you know what, Kristen, I'm sorry for what I did. And for me, I'm able to say, I forgive you. And that anger, and a release of that anger and that hate that I had from people who had treated me unfairly. And that's something that I never anticipated, but I'm very grateful for.
Absolutely, and I think it just goes to show that the importance of forgiveness and how it allows you to leave your baggage and your burden behind, and that will allow you to let go so that you can now move on.
Because I mean, they always say forgiveness is not for them; it's for you, and it's true. I'm able to let go and fully move forward in who I am, rather than harboring all of this hate and anger towards people who don't take the time, who is a waste of time for them. They are living their lives. Why should I cloud mine with hate and anger?
Absolutely. And I think as I've gotten older, what I've come to realize is that, bullies and people who take out their anger and people who go out of their way to be mean to people really are just projecting their insecurities.
Yeah.
And that they have a problem with things that they don't understand. They have a problem with things that they don't try to understand. And so they decide to act out in whatever way they think they need to. And so I think the mere fact that your book allowed the people who choose to be mature enough, because it takes a level of maturity and acknowledgement and accountability for persons to say, my bad, I am truly sorry. And for you to say,
and they even
okay.
say, because there's a girl in particular who she apologized, and one of the things she said, I said, I now have an autistic child, and I said, I hope that she doesn't deal with the same things that you dealt with, and she doesn't come across someone like her who treated me like that.
That's actually very, very, very profound. Finally, my question to you. Let me jukey in one question. One more question before my last question.
Okay.
When can we expect another book from you? Or I'm hoping that there's another book in the works.
Well, I've started writing the children's book.
Nice.
But it's one thing is to find the illustrator and all of that. So it's a process.
I can give you two names of amazing illustrators who have a lot of experience in it, and I think who will complement your work very, very well. So I will absolutely share that with you, and of course you can go through your process. My final question to you, therefore, is: what's your definition of redirection, especially as it applied to your life?
Well, if someone were to say to me a few years ago that I would have given my life to God, I would say, you're crazy. Because even though I grew up in an Anglican family, I never really followed.
Yes.
But once I got to know God all over again for myself, I fell in love with God. So I think of redirection as you never know what course life may take you. And it's a matter of, I'm not saying that you can't make your plans, but be open to change. Be open to the fact that you may think that you're going down one road, but life may take you on another. That could be even better than where your final destination was going. And I'm open to it. I look forward to it. And I look forward to where life redirects me to one way or another.
I love that. Thank you. Kristen, thank you so very much. Thank
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being bold. Thank you for betting on yourself. I think, unfortunately, in this world, we have people who put their mouth on people and do everything in their power to break them.
Yes.
And certainly a lot of times people say things and they behave in a manner and they do not realize how much it harms and how much it hurts and how much it damages. And unfortunately, too many amazing people have left this world prematurely because of how we treat people. And so the whole idea of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never. No, they both do.
Both hurt.
And so it's my hope that, by having yourself and other persons who are different, that it will open up the conversation for us as adults to understand our role in society, as parents, our responsibility to our children, so that we will now grow global citizens and to grow children who are compassionate and thoughtful when they come across another child who might have Cruz-on or any other type of condition. That is my hope for not just Jamaica, but for the region and the world.
Yes.
And so I truly want to thank you, and I'm very happy for the day that you decided to introduce yourself to me through your book, because then I learned so much more. So thank you. Thank you for being in the Redirection seat.
Thank you for having me.
My goodness. So guys, thank you so very much for tuning in. Thank you for making it Redirection with Terri-Karelle. I certainly hope that there was something that Kristen said or shared that made you either look within yourself to ask yourself, could I have been kinder to someone? Am I being thoughtful? Am I being mindful in what I say and in what I do as it relates to other people? Hopefully it will cause us to think about how it is we intentionally parent and how we intentionally raise our children. Are they compassionate? Do they understand what it is to have other people with differences in this world, and that it's okay not to know all of them, but it is more important to treat everyone who you come into contact with respect. If there's any particular nugget or gem or takeaway that resonated the most with you, go ahead, drop it in the comments. Let us know what you thought, and most importantly, share it, especially an episode such as this. Share it so that we can continue to educate and sensitize other communities so that we can spread the kindness and the awareness. So again, thank you so very much. Continue to use the hashtag TK Redirection, and I will see you next week. Thanks to our partners, MasterCard, Heineken 00, Toyota Jamaica, Spaces, Commercial Concepts, Brescia, Beauty Brands by MDS, and Go Shore Courier.